Who the hell are you, man?
I am Venom. I'm just kidding. It's Dr. Michael Morbius at your service.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Untitled Marvel Project, or a very special episode of that show, which I'm calling the Untitled Morbius Project. That's right, it's
What?
Morbius. It's Morbius Takeover Week. Here at
God.
BLB, a channel that you should subscribe to if you want to talk Morbius with us or anything else. But why would you want to talk about mostly Morbius? Why would you want to talk about anything else except for Morbius? But if that strikes you, you should join the Discord. That link is in the description. You should like this video. You should comment your thoughts on the cinematic masterpiece that is 2022's Morbius.
Yeah.
We've all three seen it. I'm your host, Tanner Dykstra. I'm joined, as always, on this show by Tucker Hazel and an uncommon guest whose face you might have seen around BLB. It's Timo Nelson.
It is.
I know. It's what am I doing on the Marvel project? I thought that I was against this kind of thing. Well, I went and saw this movie, so here I am to talk about it.
That's right, and we all loved it. Am I right, fellas? It was a really, really good. No, of course. It remains to be Morbius Takeover Week here at BLB, but Morbius, as it turns out, to no one's surprise, is a really, really bad movie. Okay, just boring for most of it, and then just taking really weird choices at other points, just all across the board. Quite a bad film.
Quite a strange movie, but also kind of soulless and just like not a whole lot going on, really.
Yeah. So we'll try our best to break it down here for you, but boy howdy, is there's a loss of things to talk about in this film. But I want to throw it over to Tucker Hazel first.
Well, I would say that there's a loss of things to talk about in this film because we just walked out of the film like an hour ago, and I'm already losing what happened in this fucking movie.
I saw it a day ago. Do you think I remember any of the plot points?
Jesus Christ.
None.
I think in broad strokes, what this movie is going to be remembered for is being one of the most useless superhero movies that has existed in the modern era. I firmly believe that this is the worst Marvel film that has released since the MCU started. I mean, I would even say that, well, I don't like Incredible Hulk. I like Incredible Hulk less, but that's probably a better movie than this. But even some of the crappy X-Men movies and stuff, this is bottom of the barrel. And I think what we are going to remember it for is the fact that Jared Leto is Morbius.
Yeah,
Undeniable.
And that the editing is terrible, and the lighting is terrible, and the CGI is terrible, and the action is terrible. Like,
the plot is terrible.
Holy shit, yes. Every facet that this movie has that could go for it, it just knocks over with a flick and says, no, we want to see Jared Leto with his shirt off and go, rah.
We
And
get scrawny Jared
the
Leto
only thing this
and
movie,
buff Jared Leto.
yes. But those are the only things that this movie works for, and those are the shots that you can see in the trailer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's nothing lost in this film that you don't already get in the trailer.
Yeah.
It's a lot of Jared Leto sort of like meandering about, letting the plot happen to him, I guess. And in between, a lot of people go with a vampire face.
Yep. Well, mostly two people.
Yeah. Like I said, there's a lot of things to talk about because like Dr. Michael Morbius, as we all know and love him, does not have motivation or character traits to speak of. He is, I like you get a flashback 25 years ago, Greece, okay, and you get to see Dr. Michael Morbius when he was little Dr. Michael Morbius, okay.
Oh, can we just talk about the moment they discovered his genius? Because this is where you knew the movie was going in the right direction. Because in the moment they discovered his genius, he replaced a fuse with a little spring, and everyone is like, "What?"
and then it instantly cuts to him receiving a Nobel Prize, but then he rejects it for unclear reasons.
Off screen.
Yeah, exactly.
It's befuddling.
a Nobel Prize, as characters in the film call it. They call it the Nobel Prize, which is not how you pronounce it. But like they sort of like play with this idea when he's a kid of him being like a social network Mark Zuckerberg type, where he's like an asshole, but only because he doesn't know how to like relate to people socially and stuff like that. But that gets dropped. Because he just turns into a nothing character who becomes a living vampire.
Well, both him and his friend Milo, who this film essentially...
Or Lucius.
That's a fucking can of potatoes. I don't want to open. Their relationship at the beginning starts because they're the underdogs and no one cares about them and they're the freaks and they're bullied, and then they're both
they
just
bond
like
instantly.
they bond instantly, which I guess I can kind of understand, being like
Morbius saved his life.
Like,
Yeah.
but then they both just grow up to be like frail and disabled people, but very confident and attractive, and they're leading their lives and getting things done, and they're walking down the streets and joking together. Like their entire character arc of them growing out of being frail and scared of the world and stuff, it's just dropped. Like, we don't see any of that.
And also, it already happened. Like, they have this
Exactly.
thing of, like, we are the few against the many or whatever. But, like, Matt Smith, you're a multi-millionaire living in a penthouse in New York City.
And
Dr.
Michael
Morbius
is widely renowned.
Yeah, you are a world-famous blood scientist or something like that.
He loves Bloodborne.
He loves Bloodborne. He's a world-famous Bloodborne streamer.
Souls fan.
He won a Nobel Prize, and yet the film tries to like force feed you this thematic narrative of like the few against the many, the underdogs. Nature dealt them a bad hand, and now they're time to rise up. But like they've already risen up. They're some of the most well-respected people.
Than I ever will
Yeah,
be.
exactly.
But they're of course only hampered by this mysterious disease that makes them weak, and
but it makes them weak in unspecified manners. The only really evidence of their illness that we ever see is them hobbling around on on the walkers or the crutches, and yet otherwise it's inconsequential. It really does not matter. They're gonna die at some time, but like
they've survived to longer than they should have, but for no real reason.
They're just on a ticking clock for you. They are because
you don't
they
feel
are.
it at all. Yeah.
But then we obviously get the inciting incident, which is that Dr. Michael Morbius has been studying bats who have a gland or something. Who cares? And he becomes a Morbius vampire.
In the most edited to shit transformation sequence I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
Like they're like, hey, we're finally doing this crazy experiment that no one's ever done. It's kind of, we gotta be in international waters to it, and they literally cut to a thing that says international waters. And then he gets the injection in his spine, and then he goes, and then he's Morbius.
And then he's Morbius, and then he kills a bunch of people.
Yes, in a fit of rage, who knows why he
bloodlusting, Yes. And then we insert our secondary antagonists of the film, Tyrese Gibson and his friend Rodriguez, who are
the
FBI agents.
Who do nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
I hate
literally
these
nothing. They serve to be the on-the-ground people who are trying to understand what this, supernatural nonsense is. However, they never actually succeed in anything, and they never impede Morbius or Milo's plans at all.
In any way.
They're so tangentially related to the core plot that they just kind of be like, hey, there's dead bodies around. That's bad. But they don't like. Who knows? Who fuck knows?
No, even beyond that, just like their performance together on screen and just like the way that they're written is so. Oh my god! Every line is a dumb joke, and none of them land. None of them were funny.
No, this movie's not funny. Not intentionally, anyway. But I think these two characters are a good way to talk about a larger thing that applies to a lot of this film, which is that this is very clearly like a edited, cut down, pieced together, slapdash together amalgamation. Of whatever this movie was initially and transformed into. It turned out like this. Because
over the course of being edited for like 2.5 years, the first trailer for this movie dropped in January of 2020, which means this was filmed in 2019. And so, of course, COVID, they had time to edit, they had time to figure it out, but then Spider-Man No Way Home happens, and that is a big deal, both monetarily in terms of impact on the Sony's universe and the Marvel universe. So, all right, we got to figure that out. But we have the trailer where Michael Keaton's Vulture character is in the trailer like a year and a half ago, but then he's not in the movie. He's in the post-credit spoiler. But that's clearly not something that it was intended to be the case, and they had to refigure it out. And you can tell through the editing of this movie and how the scenes are placed together and how characters interact that this was something very different initially.
Yeah, I mean, with your characters of the two FBI agents, like they're tangential to the story, but in the trailers, there's a sense of they're a lot more involved. They have lines and scenes that are not present in this. I'm gonna say at least 20 to 25%. Being a conservative estimate here, at least 20 to 25% of the lines in this film are ADR'd in. It's a wide shot of the characters. You can't really see their mouths moving, but sometimes you can, and it's just lines of exposition and like just barreling the plot forward through these slapdash together scenes.
Having recently studied exactly how they do ADR in films, I could say that this film must have had 200 cuts of ADR to do, and oh man, some poor ADR editor got really rich working for this movie because they had to put in a ton of time.
I hope so.
Well, I hope that most of the people who begrudgingly worked in this film made their money and are happy and never have to do a movie like this again, because I don't think that, except for maybe Jared Leto and possibly Daniel Espinosa, who's the director, I don't think anyone involved with this film is... I hope they're not proud of it, because this is, as I said, the most useless film, but it certainly feels the most cash grabby. We have... Sony has a universe that they need to keep making films with characters that do not make sense externally from their source material, which is in relation to Spider-Man. So they have to try to flesh out side characters and character arcs for characters who do not have character arcs and who do not have a world to call their own that you can base things off of. So they just sort of slapdash together tropes and character ideas that do not make sense in the film.
And because they can't hire any writers to actually write anything, they just have to come up with it in the Sony boardroom.
It definitely feels like a boardroom film. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Should we just talk about like the multiverse and the Sony versus the MCU thing?
I just don't know anything. I just don't know anything about that.
Okay,
I don't care very much, but you can discuss if you
we'll try to keep it brief here, because it's so, as Tucker alluded to, it's so clear and obvious that Sony Pictures is trying to just weasel their way into the MCU in any which way they can, namely in the post-credit scenes of this film, which is basically all that like Marvel fans are going to this for, I would say, is to see how they try to tie this in at the very end after the credits.
It's the only reason this movie matters.
Yeah. Michael Keaton shows up. He gets whooped in from the multiversal goings on from No Way Home,
which, by the way, we have discussed at length, makes no sense within the already shaky logic of No Way Home's multiversal nonsense. In terms of characters were brought to the main Marvel universe because they knew who Spider-Man was. Vulture, already in that universe, knows who Spider-Man is. Why is he brought to another universe? Venom was brought here because Venom knows, but Eddie doesn't know. That's fucking weird. But then he was sent home when the thing closed. So technically, if Vulture was sent to this universe, shouldn't he have been sent back when it closed?
I'm gonna need a flow chart by the end of this. By the end of today, Tucker.
I think the canon reason is that Michael Keaton agreed to a paycheck. I think that's the canon, is that the actor Michael Keaton agreed to that paycheck.
Yeah.
And so he shows up and like goes on like reverse trial to see if he gets released from prison.
Reverse trial, which already is funny because he doesn't exist in this universe.
No.
So they're just like, "Who the fuck are you? Why do you have a jumpsuit on?" And he's like, "I don't know. I don't know where I am. I don't know who you are. This is not my universe." Presumably, if they can even have the fucking brains to talk about multiversal shenanigans. Yeah. And then he's free.
And then you take that baby and you throw it out the window, because we got another post-credit scene, baby, that like it makes the previous one completely useless, because we have Dr. Michael Morbius driving an indiscriminate car that
rich-looking car.
Why is he driving a car? He can fly, but he's driving it to the middle of nowhere, and then he sees the Vulture flying up. The Vulture lands.
Like he's outside of L.A. It looked like
exactly.
It literally looked like they went to L.A.
It's actually Jared Leto's car is just what he's driving there.
Wherever this location was, it certainly wasn't in the Northeast, where I don't know my cardinal directions. So he drove across the country. Which is probably why he drove. pretty
Yes.
tiring to be carried by the mysterious wind that carries down.
I wanted to get to all that wacky shit after we wrap this up. So Vulture lands in front of him and says, "Hey, we should make a Sinister Six to fight Spider-Man." And the logical answer Morbius should give is, "Who? What are you talking about? There's other villains? What?
No,
what?
that's not what he says.
Do I know you?" But no, he says, "Intriguing." Cut to black.
But no, what Michael Keaton goes like, we should go out and do some good.
Yeah.
I think a group of guys like us could do something good. He does mention Spider-Man's name, and he says it in relation to why multiversal stuff is going, which is true. However, another inconsistency. Vulture should not know that Spider-Man is involved with this in any way because he was
just
in
got
jail
transported out
when the events of No Way Home happened. So he would never have heard of this. But regardless, I think this is a good opportunity to take advantage of Morbius's inconsistent character because he, as a human being, Dr. Michael Morbius, is not. Yes, of course, is not a fan of the fact that he turns into a vampire and has to kill people, has to drink blood. Throughout the entire film, he only, and once he realizes, he only resorts to violence when he's pushed to that, which I think is the only interesting aspect of his character, is like internal conflict of, I can't control this, but can I use it for good? Like, there is something interesting that could have been done there. However, at the end
they don't do anything with it.
He's not a villain, but then he's teaming up with someone who, like, presents himself as a villain. Very, very strange and very inconsistent.
Yeah, I just don't think they just don't care. They just They just want to make like their sans Spider-Man universe, and like try to get Spider-Man in by like continually prodding the people over at Disney and the MCU. Like, hey, we keep doing stuff because we can, and Disney's like, fucking knock it off. You make awful shit movies, and we're not going to incorporate any of that canon into our universe. So stop trying, and Sony's not going to stop because this is just a cash grab for them.
Because they make PlayStation, and they can afford to make all the movies like this they want.
If there is a single person out in the world that Sony can trick into thinking that Morbius or Venom 2 or Kraven the Hunter is in the MCU...
Or Madam Web, who just got its social media pages started a couple of days ago. The Madam Web movie.
If there is one single person out there that they can fool, they're making that movie for that person, to make a buck off of that person. And that's really at the core of why this movie and all of the other Spunk movies are terrible.
Spunk.
Yes.
The Sony Pictures universe of Marvel characters.
Of course.
SPUMC.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Just for the uninitiated.
But let's...
Bat radar for the uninitiated.
But let's talk about the stupid, wacky shit in Morbius. I want to start off with his wind powers, which is how he flies.
What about when he's winding up for like a kamehameha and he's using like force grabbing and like he's using the bat. Oh my god, he's using the
They clearly had like they had like smoke effects just queued up in whatever VFX app they were using, and it's like, I don't know, put it on literally everything.
Yes.
Why does he emit smoke? He gets his powers from
the
bat
echolocation, bro. Dude, it's a visual representation.
No, but when he does his flight powers and like zippy doodah powers, smoke comes out of him. Like,
oh yeah, I don't.
He gets his powers from bat DNA. Why does he emit like magic smoke?
it's like Nightcrawler shit.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, the powers are very inconsistent and don't make a lot of sense and just serve for him to do what I think are some of the worst edited and visually interesting action sequences I've ever laid my eyes upon. Not only are they not choreographed, like at all, like maybe one or two shots of characters actually fighting or him actually like hurting someone per scene, but otherwise these action sequences, if you can even bear to call them that, are just shit flying at the camera and the camera cutting every possible opportunity that impact or action could be shown. So you'll have him flying through the air and it'll go and then it'll slow down because they want a cool action shot, and then it'll speed up and it'll slow down, and it's like, what the fuck are you doing?
Timo, do you have any weird, crazy, wacky, just stupid decisions that were made in Morbius that you'd like to bring up?
I mean, it's just like it was shot in England, and it totally feels like green screen every
Yes.
shot, just like we made this in one room. You know, I didn't notice anything like bad about the sound. I mean, it was like I was like, okay, it sounds like a movie. It's got all these crazy effects for all this crazy shit I'm looking at on screen, and that's kind of about it. I mean, I was like, man, I was really certainly this time a lot more like, just confused and angry about the plot and the substance of the film, which there really isn't any, but you know, what would have been substance is where I was like, you know, the fact that when he becomes a vampire, right? He's like, I can't keep drinking artificial blood. It will eventually not work for me, and I will have to resort to drinking real human blood, the red, as he calls it. And yet that is never consequential. He always is just able to keep lugging down the blue stuff, and he's like, oh, I'm at 4 hours now, and I'm like, okay, dude, and so like. Is this gonna matter for anything? No, it doesn't. It's just yet another thing that's picked up and dropped, like so much else.
So a lot of his motivation and intrigue within the science part of his character and that kind of stuff is around the fact that he doesn't want to have to resort to drinking human blood. He would think that makes him a monster, which of course it does, and it's decreasing over time because diminishing returns, fucking whatever. But this movie is so poorly paced in terms of the time scale of everything. Like, everything could have happened within 3 days or fucking 2 weeks. It's unclear. Like, the amount of time that it takes to go from 6 hours to 4 hours and 20 minutes, I believe specifically, which is funny, is unclear. But then, suddenly, out of fucking nowhere, even though he's at 4 hours and 20 minutes, and it should continue decreasing at a reasonable rate, he's like, tomorrow, I'm going to have to start drinking this, and I can't let that happen. So I need to create a fucking anti-Morbius juice that just fucking kills me. It's like, none of this connects.
And then he doesn't use it on himself, because there's a post-credit scene.
Yeah. He gets a Morbius cave from shutting down some money counterfeiters.
Money counterfeiters.
The only crime that Michael Morbius attempts to stop in this film as a hero, other than a guy who's murdering people, which of course is a larger crime, is that he sees some guys trying to do counterfeit money, and that's just what really ticks him off.
You know, like I was talking about, I was thinking about this, and he could have just, you know, like the film writers could have just made it be like a meth lab or something, and he would have been like far more justified. I don't know. It's man. Think about it.
Speaking of that scene, we don't get the line, Dr. Michael Morbius at your service. They cut that after the I am Venom thing. Which just makes the joke weirder. He's like, I am Venom.
He just says that.
Now get out of here.
And it's like, hey, remember, Venom exists in this universe. Timo, have you seen either of those films?
No. So why does he say I am Venom?
Because
that's what Venom says.
But why does he
Venom says we are Venom.
I guess
does he say it? Because it's silly.
Because it's a funny reference, and there's no reason why anyone in the wider universe of the Spunk would know that Venom says "I am Venom" or "We are Venom." It's just a thing for the audience, for the zero fans of the Spunk.
Makes no sense.
To really attach to,
because it's like one of like only 3 Easter eggs in this entire film.
Yeah,
honestly, I was hoping as a fan of the bare ideas that this could set up things and could be interconnected because they technically have a universe now. I was hoping for them to just lean in all in on the fan service and have. They didn't even show that like Spider-Man graffiti that was in the trailer. Like if they were going to lean all in on having Daily Bugle stuff everywhere and references to Venom and they say I am Venom and they say something happened in San Francisco Bugle, but he reads the Daily Bugle. But like I wish they had leaned all in on that because then I would have been more engaged to possibly noticing Easter eggs, which were incredibly barren and bare bones in this film.
Yeah, I mean, we get such classic Daily Bugle headlines as Dr. Michael Morbius wanted for vampire murders. Speaking of vampire murders, what do you guys think of Matt Smith as Milo or Lucius?
I can't believe I can't believe Doctor Who is in this fucking Marvel movie.
Dr. Milo Hubius.
Here's what I will say, and this is the only positive thing I have to say about the film. Matt Smith seems to be having fun sometimes.
Yeah.
The scene, which Tucker had to go to the bathroom for, and I'm very sad that he missed, where he's like dancing to that "I Am Sexy" song or whatever.
Yeah.
He's like putting on a suit, and he like quick turns into a vampire, and he goes "Rah!" and he goes back to dancing.
Yeah.
Yeah, he seems to be having fun, and you know what? More power to you, Matt.
That I didn't see that scene. I
Yeah.
did have to go to the bathroom during that, but I also used it as dramatic effect because right before that is
Oh, yeah.
they don't do the Dr. Mark Morbius at your service, and I just stood up and I walked out of the theater because I had
was
to
funny.
pee. But everyone in our row, we had 10 friends go with
Yeah.
us to see this fucking movie, and they all laughed at that.
Yeah, that's very funny.
But I
Nice.
think what's weird about this film is the amount of unintentional humor that comes from the editing. There are two specific moments that stand out to me when they figure out that baby Michael Morbius is a genius because in the middle of a conversation, Milo just goes.
That was fucking hilarious because it comes quite early on, and yeah, Michael, they do they're doing terrible editing, obviously, like they're having baby Michael Morbius narrate over them like becoming friends or whatever, and then it
It's
cuts
weird
back to them.
montage that you just cannot tell is a montage until
Yeah.
it's like way too late.
It cuts back to them in the bed, and it goes to Michael Morbius, and he says something, and it cuts back to Milo, and Milo just fucking keels over, and he's like, "Oh, I gotta switch out the fuse with a spring or whatever."
He doesn't keel over. He is keeled over. He just goes like frame 1 to frame 2.
Oh,
It's the Kuleshov effect, dude.
yeah.
And
What
then
was
the
the other
second
one, Tucker?
one
Yeah, what was the other one?
is when he and his mediocre love interest, who is a very attractive woman, I just want to say, are making out on the roof, and then it cuts, and Matt Smith is standing on a bridge like a mile away watching them. And it's like, what the fuck is happening?
By the way,
Holy
she
shit.
becomes a living vampire as well,
Yeah.
presumably.
Because she bit his
that-
lip and drank his blood. Ooh, how romantic.
How romantic. Tucker, I thought the one that you were gonna bring up was when Morbius is using his wind powers in the subway. And in a scene that goes on for like 45 seconds of him just going, it's just being silent and him going, and then every so often it'll cut back to Matt Smith in like half vampire mode, doing like a slow-mo run towards him. That was really funny.
The slow-mo stuff is so fucking weird.
Yeah.
Man. Why did the guys on the container ship have to have guns? Why?
That's
guys
what
on
I
container
asked.
ships
They're
don't normally
like
have guns.
Yeah.
And and then the FBI is like, good that they're dead anyway, though. I mean,
Fuck them.
fuck them. Yeah, that's like,
It's all very
okay. I
inconsistent
mean,
and strange.
I guess that's awesome because the FBI sucks. But like,
Ultimately, do you guys think there's gonna be a Morbius 2? I don't think so. This movie's gonna bomb at the box office.
no, I don't think it is gonna bomb.
No,
I
I
think a
don't
lot
think
of
it is
people
either.
are gonna go see it, and
you
I
think
think they're
so?
gonna make a Morbius 2. I think I think there's like a strange meme value about it, and you know. I didn't have to go pay to see it because I went to an early screener. I actually saw it on Wednesday. But okay, here's what I did. I did my part. Okay, we got comment cards after we were done watching it because it was an early screener, and they just Sony just wants to know my opinion. So I gave it to them. I said under the name, I wrote my name as Doug Soundheiser, and then I said, "Don't make Morbius 2," and I circled negative.
Nice.
like reaction.
I'm actually very. I mean, of course, we'll never know, but I would love to somehow see the results.
The
of
comment
these fucking
cards.
cards because
Oh man, I would kill.
there
I would literally
there is
kill
an
to go
audience
see
for this film of people who just will turn the brain off and watch anything that has action or Marvel characters in it, which of course is me to some extent, though I'm obviously critical of this film. But those people are not the people being invited to screeners.
No.
So everything on those fucking screening cards is gonna be like, this was shit. What the fuck are you doing?
Yeah. As evidenced by the 17% on Rotten Tomatoes, I believe.
Man,
It was at 19 and then dropped to 15. And let's get a
live
reading.
reading.
Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
Morbius. That's the first thing when I type in Rotten Tomatoes. Rotten Tomatoes, Morbius. 17%. Yeah, you're right.
17%? Okay. My last note is give him the hand.
70% audience score, though.
Oh. Well, hey. The audience, well, Tucker, maybe you're not far off. Maybe there are people who just that sit down in that seat, the Morbius title card comes up, and they just go brain dead for an hour and 45 minutes. Yeah.
Jesus Christ. It's crazy this movie is only an hour 45 minutes because it felt like 2.5 hours because I
Man.
just did not give a fuck about anything that was happening in this movie.
Yeah. Do we want to give ratings? 1 out
Sure.
of 10. 1 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, I give it a 1 star, so it's a 2 out of 10. Yeah, I think this movie's fun.
Oh yeah, whatever. I don't care.
Stupid.
Yeah, I guess I did too, but who cares?
I'm just so glad. Well, I'm thankful. Thank you, Sony, because I never would have watched this movie unless you paid for it, and thanks for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got entertainment value out of it. I won't say you got entertainment out of it, but there was value to seeing it, having this discussion, being the meme of it.
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
Give them the hand suckers. That's what I say. You're cowards because you didn't give them the hand suckers. Anyway, that concludes Morbius Takeover Week here at BLB. Thank you so much for watching this, mostly negative, but I think pretty fun review of Morbius. I can't wait to see what sort of shits Sony cooks up next.
Yeah.
You best believe that we'll be covering it here on BLB. Thanks for watching, guys.
I just edited my Morbius review tonight.
All right, let's talk. Let's do. I'm ready, man. Sorry about that shit. Let's go.